That's just like.
Yeah, I did. I'll send it back.
Don't come visit. I've been through that. I really too bad. I don't even go through that.
I'll give you an email.
Yes. Good morning. I'd like to call to order the governance committee meeting of the CCIDA CREDC CRC. We're at the Fredonia Technology Incubator, 214 Central Avenue, Dunkirk, New York. Also streaming live via YouTube and Zoom, September the 26th at 9:33 in the morning. Start with a roll call. Gary Henry is here. Dan Hetzenrader here. And Kevin Muldowney here. You have already received the minutes from the September 21st meeting. Had a chance to review those. We have a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. A second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes have been approved. We'll move into new business where we're going to review the policies and resolutions presented by Bob from Harris Beach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. So this is the third time you've used various policies. And for you some, Mark and Rich and I spent a lot of time working on these, redlining them, and editing and revising them as well. So they should be ready to go for your final recommendation board to approve. There's 15 or 16 of these items. I'll run through them all, and I don't want to about the chair's toes, but I recommend I'll just run through them and then hand you an omnibus resolution authorizing approval for the board for all of them rather than taking them one at a time. Efficiency, but I'll dive in and go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, just real quick, 10 of them are new and 6 are revised. And of those 10 new ones, 3 of them are required by the state in order for us to get enter into the grants gateway to get state funding. And one of them is revised from the state as well. So I just wanted to mention that 4 of them are required by the state. So I wanted to throw that in.
Okay, so the first item before you is the governance committee charter. This is statutorily required. This is formalizing the procedure that we've been following for, I'm sure, years whenever this committee's met. And it spells out the responsibilities of the committee, really the main one being on an annual basis, reviewing these very same policies to recommend readoption annually or to review it and revise. You know, it's the state does make best practice recommendations on an annual basis. We always slow down and double check the policies to see if there's been any other audits or recommendations by the ABO. It's not uncommon to revise some of these policies. So the first one is the governance committee charter. And again, this just puts and these are for all 3 entities. We're not going to have 3 different policies. So they're the same policies for all 3. This governance committee charter, again, just statutorily required in formalizing what you're doing already. The next new policy, to Mark's point, this is anti-nepsis policy. This was not any part of the ABO audit or best practice recommendation. This is required for some of the grant application awards that and Mark and Rich and worked with the grant board and come up with a template policy. This item is the defense and indemnification policy, statutorily required. This confirms that the agency is going to identify and hold board members and directors. Changing anything that wasn't already there as a protection, but it's formalizing the policy. The next policy is the agency's diversity policy, and this is, as Mark mentioned, policy that's required for grant award receipt, and they work with the grant or come up with a template form. not statutorily required, not a result of the audit required for grant awards. The next policy, the project recapture termination modification policy. This is statutorily required. And this can potentially be a very substantive policy. Really boring. You can see what other IDAs, some IDAs have very lengthy documents with respect to rules and procedures for recapturing financial. So if we approve projects, pilot sales tax and mortgage tax, and the company sales tax benefit for a different project. The company exceeds the sales tax benefit. Somebody else uses the sales tax benefit, or they don't meet their job commitments with respect to retention or creation or whatever on a case-by-case basis when this agency approves projects. You do put terms and conditions that you'd like to be monitored. If you do that, you need to monitor them. Not every agency, as you all know, are required to create a single job, right? So, but if you do put it in your resolution, retain 10 jobs, you're going to have to monitor that for whatever the term you have in your. Just be aware of that. And to the extent you have terms and conditions, this policy outlines what how you monitor them. This policy is very, very broad in general. Again, some agencies are very formulaic. They'll actually put in what percent of the financial systems can be recaptured if there's a default. We chose not to do that here. And as you work with Millen on your IDA approvals for financial assistance, if there's any defaults or any problems, that this lets folks know, and board members are confirming agency can capture, terminate, or modify financial systems. But again, this is a very general one. It's very broad. It didn't take a deep dive, and you can look at this on year to year or modify this. This was required. They didn't have it in that this policy. Next policy is the real property acquisition policy, statutorily required. It formalizes probably what you were already doing. We're already doing in the past to the extent the agency acquired leasehold or real titles of real property. This formalizes the your process, and probably the important thing is formalizing your. So under section A, just so you know, the third paragraph, it's really these are kind of the rules for when you decide to lease or purchase property. You're required, the agency required to conduct appropriate due diligence, including but not limited to obtaining, these are real practical property appraisals, environmental structural title. So it's formalizing probably what you're doing anyway, but you didn't have a policy in that. Remote meeting policy is the next policy. This is a discretionary policy. It wasn't a result of the ABO audit, but in practice, it's actually turning out to be pretty useful to some entities. As you all know, you're supposed to, the law requires board members, board meetings and committee meetings, public meetings, the public can come. You're supposed to physically be in the room. There are some very limited exceptions not being in the room. One of them is if you actually, so if you're in Florida, want to participate in this meeting, so the agency would have had to publicly notice that the meeting is in Dunkirk and it's at the hotel, and the chairman will be in the lobby wearing a green shirt, drinking a colada.
And the public's allowed to come join.
Public's allowed to come to make sure that no one has a gun inside.
We can't do that. Yeah, they have to buy their own drinks.
So that I'm just pointing out that there is some exception to not being in the room, but that one really isn't used very much. Why? During COVID, of course, Zoom became an ability to meet. As a result of COVID, the state amended the public officers law to allow remote participation in certain circumstances. Somebody's sick, somebody else who's injured and can't otherwise come. We put together, we're trying to make this real user friendly. If a checklist on the back, board members commit to, I have it to the chair for give us CEO. So, Mark's not gonna then go out and make sure you're really sick. Mark's gonna keep this in the records, that you were able to participate remotely and still have, the law still requires quorum in the room, but if you had quorum in the room, then if you were sick at home, you could participate and you could vote and have a dialogue and you count for voting purposes. But this actually has proven useful. I have a board member who's going through chemotherapy and first on the meeting, so this actually is very helpful for everybody, but you still get the benefit of that input. Next policy is the sexual harassment prevention policy. And this is not just new, it wasn't a result of the ABO audit, it's required under other New York state laws. This is completely up to date. This is pretty much the state's template, but they just revised it earlier this summer, and I had a really look at it. Every employer has to have a sexual policy, and now she has one. Next policy, supervision, performance, and evaluation policy. This is the anti-nepotism and diversity policy. This is required for purposes of grant award. Grant receipt not required as a result of the ABO or MBA per se, but this grant awards. Next policy is your uniform project evaluation policy. This is new, this is statutory, this is about as simple as it gets. It's supposed to give guidelines to, what the board considers as providing financial assistance. And obviously, if you were making an application, the idea you can look at this to see if your project is actually going to be well received. Some IDAs have very extensive and detailed in-depth policies, talking about tourism, taking deep dives into where they may or may not allow retail and things like that. With this, this is pretty wide open right now, which has really been your past practice. There's all sorts of investments. Template form, or not template, but this is about as simple as it gets, but now you're in compliance with the law. Those are your new policies. The next several are revised policies. So you had all the as a result of the ABO audit, just general review, and some changes again, really just looking at best practices. What have other entities been audited by the ABO, and what does the ABO say about it? We'll do this once a year, but we like to make sure that everybody's policy is the latest and greatest. Code of ethics and conflicts policy, we revised this. This is probably your most important policy. The ABO audit, ABO was critical of the agency several times for the way conflicts are handled, and we can talk about this with Mark, and Karen does a really good job. I noticed when I started attending training conflict of interest, but on a year, anytime there's a new member, you have onboarding. It's really important to make sure that person understands it. And for any of you, there's an appearance of a conflict, or there is one, there's an actual conflict where you're the owner of the appearance of a conflict, my best friend, my neighbor. Got to be aware of these situations. And as part of the approvals here, we're formalizing the process of close to contact the ethics officer. We have that set up as the CEO, Mark. So nothing to be ashamed or embarrassed of. In fact, be proactive. You don't want to be read by your case. So call Mark if you think you have anything that your gut will tell you. We all know that. And then Mark, you can talk about it, or Mark bring in the council and talk about it. But you really need to pay attention to these. It can be as simple as making a determination, no conflict. Go ahead, we don't need to disclose. There could be something where you want to disclose, but it's not a conflict of interest, and you can still vote. Maybe you disclose, but it's not rising to prohibited, and you just need to recuse yourself. Recuse means do it right. You can leave the room. This agency's been under the spotlight, so don't say anything about the project or negative. Put it on the record. You have to put it in writing. You have to disclose it. If you're going to recuse, do not participate. Like I said, you don't have to leave the room, but that was fun reading by these papers. And then there's the prohibited conflict, what happens if you actually have a financial interest. So very important policy, we updated it for this board and, hope that everybody really pays attention to it. Freedom of information law policy, this is statutorily required, ABO didn't, wasn't an ABO issue, but we noticed it had a FOIL policy. This outlines what the law says. And it confirms who the initial point of contact is, as we set up, that the CFO, so some FOIL requests go to Rich first. Rich handles it, probably talking with counsel as well, what can or cannot do. There's an assumption that everything, the law presumes everything's available to the public, but then there's several exceptions. Those are most important ones, this is financial information, employee, trade secrets, things that could adversely impact someone's business if it got disclosed. So, and the first, so we're also establishing board of grades, which is the first level is the FOIL officer that would be CFO. Documents are provided and that person appeals. It goes to the next level, which we said is the CEO. The CEO then could override the CFO, or probably because everybody's spoken to counsel, say, oh, you're getting what you get. And then that person exhausts their administrative revenue. But this just outlines policy for the public and the respond to. Procurement policy has been revised, statutorily required, and Mark and Rich spent a fair amount of time on this. This really isn't going to impact or change on your business. I think Mark and Rich will come threshold back to seeking bids or just seeking quotes or under $5,000, just the discretion of the CEO or the chair. Next policy is travel, conference, meals, and entertainment. Oh, sorry, real property disposition policy, statutorily required. We think a little bit. This will change, so you know, and you'll probably be asked. This position is more than just selling property; it's also leasing property. So this aids working space to some third parties, and we need to formalize this position. And really, you're looking at is the sale or the lease below or above fair market value. You just need to. You can even do it below fair market value. You just need to follow some procedures. Heavy on procedure, but this is pretty much fitting out the law right here in policy. But this we'll make it, we're going to be in this one thing if the agency passing the ABO with respect to at least those third parties, the county and other but we're going to be catching up on those items properly over the next couple months. Next policy is your travel, conference, meals, and entertainment policy. There are a lot of items in here that the ABO identified in its audit. We didn't really, we've revised this policy to try to address and identify like a change. Well, we're just formalizing the policy. I think some of the criticism was you didn't have a policy. So they weren't really, they were slapping your hand because you didn't have policy, or they slapped your hand because it was a policy, but they weren't. So we tried to formalize expenditures, rules. Items will be generally approved in the budget. Mark and Rich have already worked on budget items. Confirm that we captured that expenditure in the budget, and then that this policy would confirm how you that who approves the expenditure and how you get reimbursed. We were still tinkering with this until yesterday, so hopefully, you know, these are living documents as you go through here. Last one is your whistleblower policy, statutorily required. We just updated it to conform with the template. This is statutory. Anyway, but now it's done. So these could be, I think, review of a work list of all the ABO items, just, this knocks off a whole bunch of items on there. That's like 90 days, so we're getting that.
And it addresses many of the recommendations, because like you said, it was things where they talk about it inappropriate. A lot of it, we didn't have a policy. For risk for all those policies.
Thank you. Do we have any questions on any of these policies? I'll go ahead and read off the resolution. And so what we're going to do is approve these. And the actual board will review them all again during the board meeting. So this will be resolution 9-26-23-05, approving policies, charters, and appointment of certain officers. We have a motion to accept that resolution. I'll move the resolution. Thank you. The second. Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The resolutions have been approved in the committee meeting and will be forwarded to our board meeting momentarily. Is there any other old business to come before the committee? Hearing none, we'll close the committee meeting. We'll meet for our board meeting here at 10 o'clock. Thank you.